The night I graduated, my in-laws threw a surprise party for my husband's job promotion. When I walked in wearing my cap and gown, my father-in-law said, "Don't be selfish. You'll never earn what he does anyway." They tossed my degree onto the floor next to the trash. I said nothing. But the company that hired me last week just bought out my husband's firm. I knew my graduation wasn't a big deal to most people. I was 29, not 22. I hadn't taken the straight path. I'd worked full-time for years, taking night classes one by one until the school finally told me I had enough credits to walk. I didn't expect anyone to throw me a party. I just wanted dinner with my husband and maybe a hug from his parents. Something small. Something quiet. What I got instead was something else entirely. When I pulled into the driveway that evening, the first thing I noticed was all the cars lined up along the curb, blocking our mailbox. I remember thinking maybe the neighbors were having a get-together. But then I saw the familiar truck. His brother's. His cousin's beat-up Civic. And balloons. Gold ones. Tied to our mailbox. I still had my cap on. I'd driven with it because it made me feel something, pride, maybe. Stubborn pride. I had my gown still on too, wrinkled from the car seat. My degree was in a slim, maroon folder resting on the passenger seat, and I had a cake on my lap.
Vanilla.
Cream cheese frosting. The words, "We did it," written across the top in red. I bought it for us. When I opened the front door, the sound hit me like a slap. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. The living room was packed. I stepped inside, holding the cake carefully with both hands, and no one even turned to look at me. They were all focused on David. He was standing in the middle of the room, arm around his mother, drink in his hand, grinning like he just won the lottery. His dad stood beside him, already drunk, slurring his way through a speech. To David, promotion to senior manager, at 32. You're on your way to partner, son.
Cheers.
I just stood there, still wearing my gown, still holding that cake, like a damn fool. His mother saw me first. Her eyes flicked up and down my outfit and then moved past me, like I wasn't even worth commenting on. Then his father turned, saw me, and scoffed. "Don't be selfish," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "You'll never earn what he does anyway." Someone laughed. Someone else said, "Well, she did finally finish her little degree thing, didn't she?" They all chuckled. That was the moment my stomach went cold. Not hot cold. Like the part of me that had been holding on to hope just shut down completely. David didn't say anything. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look embarrassed. He came over, kissed me on the cheek like we were strangers, and whispered, "We'll talk later, okay?" Later. That word meant nothing coming from him. I put the cake on the kitchen counter, next to a tray of catered food that definitely wasn't ordered for me. Someone bumped into me and nearly knocked the folder from my hand. It slipped to the floor, landed with a soft thud, right next to the trash bin. A piece of paper towel stuck to the corner. No one bent down to pick it up. I did. I bent down, picked it up, brushed it off, and stood there looking at it for a few seconds longer than I needed to. It felt light.
Too light for what it meant.
And then I smiled, because I remembered something they didn't know. The company that hired me last week? The one that took 3 interviews and a whole month of waiting to make their decision? They had just closed a quiet but massive acquisition. David's firm. The place he just got promoted at. The place he thought he was about to climb the ladder in. They didn't even know yet. Not officially. The public announcement was coming on Monday. But I knew. Because the job I was hired for wasn't just a basic analyst role like I told David. I was brought in to lead a department. A team. I had 3 people under me already, and next week I'd be sitting in on executive meetings with names he worshipped. They thought this was the night I realized I would never be enough. But it was the night I realized I didn't need to be part of them at all. I didn't say anything. I didn't fight. I just watched. I watched my husband laugh with the same people who treated me like a burden for years. I watched him thank his father for always believing in him. I watched his mother hand him a card with a check inside and say, "You're the future of this family." And I let them have it, because the future they were praising was already mine. And they didn't even know it yet. Monday morning came fast. I didn't sleep much the night before. David didn't come to bed until after midnight. I pretended to be asleep. I didn't want to hear him try to explain. He never mentioned the party again. Never asked if I was okay. Not even a sorry you felt left out. Just silence. Like nothing had happened. I got up before him. Got dressed quietly. Black slacks, dark blouse, no jewelry. I looked sharp but not flashy. I wanted to blend in. At least for now. Before I walked out the door, he mumbled, "Good luck at your little first day." Then rolled over and went back to sleep. I didn't answer. Traffic was light. My hands shook a little on the steering wheel. Not from nerves. From rage. From everything I'd swallowed that weekend. From years of being treated like the background noise in his life. When I walked into the building, security gave me a badge. My name already printed on it. I clipped it on. Rode the elevator up. I'd been briefed the day before. Quiet integration for now. Public announcement coming later. My department would be folded in under corporate strategy. The man who ran it? A name David had mentioned a dozen times over dinner, always with this hint of awe in his voice. 2 hours in, I was sitting in a glass office with a view of the skyline. I didn't need a nameplate. I didn't need anyone clapping or cheering. I had a list of people reporting to me, a calendar full of meetings, and a mission. Fix the broken systems inside the company they just bought. David's company. They called it streamlining. Efficiency restructuring. But I knew what it really was. Cleaning house. That afternoon, I saw his name on a meeting roster. Same floor. Same building. Different side. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I just kept working.
Updating org charts.
Reviewing performance evaluations. My boss, a woman who didn't waste time with small talk, told me I'd be sitting in on the next quarter's staffing decisions. Her exact words were, "I need someone who's not afraid to make cuts." I said, "I'm not." And I wasn't. 3 days later, David finally noticed. He came home early. I was in the kitchen, chopping onions, dinner already halfway done. He walked in, stood in the doorway like he'd just seen a ghost. "Why didn't you tell me?" I kept chopping. "Tell you what?" I said. "That your company, the company you work for now, bought out mine." I looked up slowly. "Oh," I said. "I figured you'd find out eventually." His face went pale. "You're working with them?" "No," I said, setting the knife down. "Over them." He didn't say anything for a while. Just stood there, processing. When he finally spoke again, his voice was low. "You could have told me." I turned to face him. "Like how you told me about your promotion. Like how you told your parents to plan a party on the night I graduated." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then said, "That wasn't my fault. They didn't know." "They knew," I said. "They just didn't care." His jaw clenched. "This is going to be awkward now. We're going to be in meetings together. You're not my boss, right?" I didn't answer. That silence told him everything. By the next week, it was no longer just awkward. It was war. Emails started coming in. Complaints about David's department. Missed deadlines. Budget overages. I didn't go looking for dirt. It came to me. Quietly. Like the universe was handing me the pieces. One of my direct reports flagged a document, an internal memo from 6 months ago, signed by David, authorizing a deal that had gone way over budget and barely delivered results. Another flagged a pattern of missed KPIs. All of it buried under charm and buzzwords. At home, David became distant. He stopped saying good morning. He stopped eating dinner. He left early, came home late. I didn't ask where he went. I didn't care. He wasn't talking to his dad much anymore either. I heard him arguing on the phone one night, his father yelling, David yelling back. Something about respect and that woman. I knew who that woman was. It didn't bother me. They were all starting to realize something. I wasn't weak. I wasn't quiet. I wasn't going to stay in the background anymore. And I was just getting started. It was a Thursday when I got the email from HR. Subject line, request for comment. Incident review. At first, I thought it had nothing to do with me. Then I opened it. It was a complaint. Against me. Filed anonymously, but the language was familiar. Too careful. Too rehearsed. They said I was abusing authority, retaliating, and creating a hostile work environment. I sat still for a full minute, reading it over and over. Then I smiled. David had always been sloppy when he was nervous. He over-explained things, used words like unfortunately and deeply concerning. Those same words were all over the complaint. He was scared. He'd realized I wasn't just passing through, I was staying. And now he was trying to push me out the corporate way. But he didn't know I'd already made friends in legal. I'd taken the time, asked questions, listened. I replied to HR that same day. Short and simple. I attached the performance documents, budget reviews, and missed deadline reports, none of which I had created, only compiled.
Facts.
No opinions. Then I waited. That weekend his mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. Then she showed up. She didn't even knock. Just walked into the house like she still owned it. I want to talk, she said, voice clipped, eyes hard. We need to clear the air. I stood in the kitchen, arms crossed.
About what?
I asked. You're creating problems at David's job. He told me you've been difficult. I didn't answer. I just stared at her. She looked around the kitchen, nose wrinkled like always, and then said something I didn't expect. You've changed. I let out a small laugh.
No.
You just never looked closely before. She stepped forward, voice sharp. This isn't how wives behave. You're supposed to support him. He's under pressure. And I wasn't. I asked, louder now. When I was working and studying at night. When you all laughed at my degree like it was a joke. Her eyes narrowed. This bitterness, it's not healthy. You're going to ruin your marriage. I took a deep breath. Then I leaned forward just enough. My marriage was already ruined. You just didn't notice. She opened her mouth to respond, but I walked past her, grabbed my bag, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't have to. The next week brought another twist. I got called into a closed-door meeting. Not HR. Not strategy. Legal. Inside were two men in suits I didn't recognize, and one of the senior directors I barely spoke to. They asked me to sit. They didn't waste time. Did you know your husband is under investigation? One of them asked. I blinked, then said quietly, No. They slid a folder across the table. We found irregularities in contracts signed under his department. Backdated approvals. Vendor kickbacks. His name is all over it. I opened the folder. My hands were steady. They watched me carefully, waiting for my reaction. I looked up after a moment. I'm not surprised. They didn't smile. They nodded, closed the folder, and told me to keep my distance. The investigation was internal for now. Quiet. They didn't want panic. I thanked them, walked out calm. But inside, my mind was racing. Not because he was guilty, but because I suddenly understood why he'd been spiraling. He knew this was coming.
He just didn't know how fast.
That night, David came home drunk. Not just tipsy, stumbling, bitter drunk. He slammed the door, threw his keys across the kitchen, and yelled my name like it belonged to him. I didn't answer. He found me in the hallway, calm, waiting. You think you're better than me now? He shouted. No, I said quietly. I always was. You just couldn't see it. He charged toward me, stopped inches from my face, breathing hard. You think you can take everything from me? He hissed. I met his eyes. I haven't taken anything, I said. You handed it all away. He stared at me, jaw trembling, eyes bloodshot. Then he turned and walked out the front door.
I didn't follow.
I locked it behind him. David didn't come home for 2 days. When he did, it was only to grab clothes. He didn't say a word to me, just walked in, eyes low, stuffed his suitcase and walked out. I didn't stop him. I didn't ask where he was going. I didn't care. Because by then, everything was already in motion. The internal investigation picked up speed. I didn't interfere. I didn't need to. I stayed in my lane, did my job, kept records. I was careful, but I was honest. I answered every question, gave them every file they asked for. Quietly, steadily. David's name came up again and again. So did two of his close friends at work. One of them had vouched for him on several deals. Another had signed off on some shady vendor contracts. His inner circle was unraveling fast. One morning, I walked into work and saw David's photo being taken down from the team lead's wall in the lobby.
No announcement.
No email. Just gone. That night, he called me. First time in weeks. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just asked, "Was this you?" I stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "No, it was you." Then I hung up. I never answered another call from him again. His parents didn't reach out at first. Not when he lost his job. Not when rumors started spreading about legal trouble. Not when his accounts got frozen pending audit. But once the media picked up the story, once it hit the local news that 3 executives were being investigated for corporate fraud, his mother showed up at my door again. This time she knocked. I opened the door. She looked smaller now. Not weak, but worn. The way pride crumbles when no one claps anymore. She held her purse with both hands. "I know he made mistakes," she said softly. "But this is too much." I waited. She took a breath. "If there's anything you can do, anything you can say to make this stop." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "No," I said. Her eyes welled up. "You're punishing all of us." I didn't make him sign those papers. I didn't lie to clients. I didn't pretend my wife's success didn't matter. She looked down. For the first time, she didn't have anything to say. So I said it for her. "When you laughed at me that night, when you let them toss my degree next to the trash, you told me I didn't matter." "I was wrong," she whispered. "I know," I said. "But I'm not here to fix it. I'm here to let you sit with it." Then I turned and walked back inside.
Slowly.
Quietly. She didn't follow. In the months that followed, I kept going. I got promoted. Again. Not because of what happened, but in spite of it. I worked hard. Stayed sharp. Led with facts, not anger. But I didn't forget. David was indicted for fraud, along with 2 others. He avoided prison through a plea deal, but he lost everything: his career, his reputation, his friends. He moved out of state. I heard he was working at a car rental place. I never checked. I filed for divorce quietly. He didn't contest it. There was nothing to split. Everything was already broken. The day the papers were finalized, I sat on my porch alone. I poured a glass of wine. I took out my degree. Clean now, framed, and hung it in my office for the first time. Not because I needed anyone to see it, but because I was done hiding. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream or a slap. It was silence. Stillness.
Truth.
It was every step I took after they told me I didn't matter. And it was watching them fall apart, not because I destroyed them, but because they never knew how to stand without someone else holding them up. Even me. I wasn't perfect. I stayed too long. I stayed quiet too long. I let myself shrink to fit into a life that was too small.
But now?
Now I was free. And that was the only ending I ever needed.